Hello, my name is Ben Gutscher. I am a lecturer of English for academic purposes here at Kunshan University in China. By the way, we just celebrated the Chinese New Year, so welcome and I wish you lots of prosperity in the year of the horse. I'm also an Excel Esports player. I have been playing Excel Esports. I'm in my 6th year now, starting in 2021. And in this video today, we are going to walk through a case called This Spreadsheet is a Nightmare. This walkthrough is for the Junior Varsity Edition, so if you're looking for the walkthrough for the Varsity Edition, take a look at this channel's history and you should see that video available for you. I'm going to go ahead and walk you through the 7 levels and 5 bonuses in this case. Level 1. Dreams and nightmares can have hidden messages. Remove the unwanted character to reveal the hidden word. Pay attention to which cell the word is located in. Hint: consider using the substitute function. So the way that the substitute function works is it lets us take a character or a set of characters and replace it with something else. So in this case, if I use substitute, I want to replace from this string, I want to replace the caret symbol, which is this caret here. And to simply remove it, I want to replace it with nothing. And that's what these double quotes are going to do for me. Doing that will give us the words from each of these, which in this case is an Excel function at every game. Level 2, a goblin is playing tricks, inserting blank cells in our sets of numbers. Each set has 40 cells. Count the number of non-blank cells in each set of numbers. Hint: the count function might come in handy. So what the count function does is it basically counts how many numbers do we have in a range. So if I go ahead and highlight these 40 cells using the count function, it's going to tell me how many numbers are in these 40 cells. In this case, we have 31 numbers. And we can go ahead and use that for all of the games there. Level 3. The goblin has been busy mashing numbers into a single cell. Numbers are separated by a semicolon. Each game has 40 numbers. Sum the numbers within each set of numbers. Hint: consider using the text split function. And so what the text split function will do is it will let us split a cell, split the contents into multiple cells, depending on which character is used to delineate them or find the difference between them. So if I show you up here, I'm going to go ahead and text split this. And I'm going to use a column delimiter, so it's going to go across a single row here. And because it's separated by a semicolon, I'm going to use a semicolon to separate them. So now you see we have a bunch of numbers. But keep in mind that text split is a text function or a string manipulation function. If you try to sum them together, Excel is actually reading this as a bunch of text, not as a bunch of numbers, so you're going to get zeros. Now, fortunately, Excel is very nice in that when you try to do math to something that looks like a number, it's going to turn it into a number. So I'm going to multiply this by 1. That's going to turn all of our numbers from strings into numbers. What is happening here? That turned it into a date. Don't know why. There we go. So now let's go ahead and sum all of these together, and we are going to get a number, which is the answer to example 3 in this case. There you go. Level 4. Oh no, all kinds of creepy emojis have infiltrated our spreadsheet. Count how many times the emoji of interest appears in each set of emojis. Hint: consider using COUNTIF or COUNTIFs. Now either of these functions will work. They both are run the same way. The only difference is COUNTIFs is for multiple criteria. In this case, we only have one criteria, so we can go ahead and just use the COUNTIF function. And the way that COUNTIF works is we are going to count from this range of cells how many of them meet our criteria, which is the emoji of interest listed there. In this case, we have 6 in the example. Pacing it down, we're going to count the emoji of interest for each of those cells across. Level 5. Uh-oh, the scary emojis have inserted themselves in our numbers and congregated the numbers into a single cell. Each game has a set of 40 numbers in a single cell separated by semicolons. Within each set of numbers, a single scary emoji appears within or around each number. For example, in example 5, the scary emoji is a ghost. Ignore any leading zeros for a number. Pay attention to which cell the scary emoji is located in. Sum the numbers. Now this is using a combination of 2 of the functions that we used in the previous levels. I'm going to start by using the text split function. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and split this using the semicolon because that's what is splitting across every cell. But now we have a bunch of cells with some numbers, but also some ghosts in them. And so that's what substitute is going to be used for here. So I'm going to substitute that text split that I just did. So this is the text that we're going to substitute. The old text is going to be the ghost emoji. And the new text, if you remember from level 1, is going to be nothing. Just double quotes to represent a blank cell. That then gets all of the ghosts out of the numbers. Remember, we have to multiply them by 1 so that Excel can read them as numbers. And then we can easily sum them together to get the answer for this level. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in here for example 5 and copy that down for all of the level games in this level. Level 6, what a fright. Scary emojis have eaten our numbers. Each scary emoji has replaced a particular numeral as shown in the table on the right. That is this table here. Each game has 40 numbers. Sum the numbers. Hint, XLOOKUP might be useful. So the way that XLOOKUP works is that it takes a number, looks it up in a list, and then returns the corresponding place in another list. So if I go ahead and I XLOOKUP this cell from this list on the table, I'm going to print F4 so that these are absolute references. So when I copy and paste, this will stay into place. It won't move. And I'm going to replace it with the numeral there. So you see the pig snout in this one should return the number 4. In this case, it does. Now, the cool thing about XLOOKUP is that it doesn't just work for one cell. You can actually look up all of the cells in here, and you can return all of the numbers with one single formula. So there we go. We've got all of the numbers, and then we can simply sum all of those numbers together, and we'll get the answer for this level. So let me go ahead and put that in here and answer all of the games for level 6. Level 7, holy horror! Scary emojis have eaten our numbers and joined themselves together within a single cell. Each scary emoji replaces a particular numeral as shown in the table on the right. We got another table over there, probably the same table. Very important note, each emoji has a length of 2 characters, and I'll explain what that means here in a minute. Convert the emojis into numbers. Now, the key thing for this level is it's not adding the numbers. You just want to convert them into numbers and bring the numbers together. That's why it's considering using the functions concat, mid, and XLOOKUP. So first, let's take a look at this important note. What does it mean here that each emoji has a length of 2 characters? Well, if I use a function len, which means length, I'm going to bring it over to this cell. Now, we see 2 emojis, which we think means 2 characters for the length. But some emojis actually are double width. There's 2 bits of characters going in to combine to make that emoji. And that's what's happening in this level. It's not just 2 characters wide, it's actually 4 characters wide. So how do we do that when we can't look up a single character? We have to somehow look up a combination of characters. Well, that's actually quite a little bit tricky, but I think it's something that we could do. So if we consider a sequence of 4 characters in length. We got 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so what we have here is we have a character that's taken up the position 1, 2, and another character taking up the position 3, 4. And so what I do here is if I take, for example, I'm using the mid function. I take the mid of this cell, which has the character we're looking for. We're going to pull out 2 characters. So the starting number is we could take a sequence using that length of this cell. Now keep in mind the length is 4. We want to pull out 2 characters. So I'm going to divide that length by 2. We're going to start at position 1. And we're going to go to position steps of 2. So it'll be from position 1 to position 3 to position 5 to position 7 and so on. Now that finishes off my sequence statement. Let me go back to the mid statement. Now remember I said that each of these is a character width of 2. That means the number of characters I'm going to pull out is going to be 2. That's the width of the emojis. Let's see how this looks when I bring this out. So now we have the emojis properly split into 2 cells. We have this, I'm going to guess, devil emoji and the pig snout emoji. Now we can go ahead and do what we just did for the previous level. We can XLOOKUP those into this scary emoji list, making sure we lock it so it doesn't move, and returning the corresponding numeral there, also making sure we lock it so it doesn't move. Now we get 8 and 4. Now the final step to do this, because we cannot just add those numbers together. We can't use the sum function, but we can use the concat function. Concat means concatenate or bring these strings together. So I'm going to use the concat function to bring them together, and we are going to get 84. Now it's going to look like 84. It's technically a text, and that's the only reason why I'm getting a red X here. It's really just an Excel different data type thing. It's actually the right answer. But if I multiply this by 1, now it's going to give a green check mark because Excel really wants me to bring back a number. I don't know how this would read on the XPrep system. I don't know. See how your scores came out, and you can judge from there. Now, let me show you one other trick with this level that the professionals have been using a little bit recently when it deals with emojis. There's actually 2 tricks I'm going to show you. First is Excel has recently added a different kind of data parsing when it comes to these. Let's see. If I go to the Formulas tab, go to Calculation Options, there's a compatibility version. Version 1 is the original version, and that makes these emojis to be a length of 2. But this version 2, now watch what happens when I switch to version 2, and I now do, well, you see my answers are changed. But if I do a length of this, now the length is going to be 2. So version 2 takes the emojis and turns them into single character widths. Now, for the purposes of this case, I'm going to go back to version 1 because now my answers are correct. But another trick that I'm going to teach you is if you're familiar with computing, or maybe you started taking some computer science courses, you might have learned of something called regex, or regular expressions. Regex is you can put a simple code into a computer to look for a certain pattern. And the way that it can work with this is Excel has 3 regex functions: regex extract, regex replace, regex test. We're going to use regex extract because we want to pull the information, extract the information from the cell. So I'm going to use this as text, and there is a pattern where if you use, I think this is backslash or forward slash. I don't know which slash it actually is, but if you use this slash and a capital letter X, this looks for emojis no matter what kind of width we're looking at. So I'm going to use that as my pattern and return mode 1, meaning I want all of the characters or all of the bits that fit this pattern. And you're also going to get your 2 emojis, not having to worry about the length of the emoji or anything like that. But for this level, because all of the emojis have the length of 2 characters, you can use the original function formula that I showed you in here, and that'll work just fine for this level. So now we got all 7 levels. Let's go ahead and take a look at the bonuses. At the top, bonus 1. In level 1, excluding the example, how many characters is the longest answer? Now I'm going to do this by using a combination of 2 functions. I'm going to take the length of all of these answers here, and then outside of that, I'm going to put that inside of a max function. So the length will tell me like 8, 5, 6, 5, and so on for every one of these. And the max is just going to pull out the maximum number out of all of those answers right there, which we're going to get is 8. Bonus 2. In level 2, excluding the example, among the 20 by 40 sets of numbers, what is the sum of the 2 largest individual numbers? All right, so this one takes another function that we actually haven't looked at yet, and that's going to be the large function. So what the large function does is it lets you pick the largest whatever number from a list. And that's what K is. K represents the largest, like whatever rank you want to pull them. So I'm going to go down here. I'm going to select all of these numbers for my range. Let me just go use the arrow, make sure I highlight them all. And let's start by getting the first largest number. So large, comma 1, that gets me the largest number, which is 99,996. Now, if I go ahead and add and change this to the second largest number, that is now going to add the 2 numbers together, and I get my answer for this bonus. All right, bonus 3. In level 4, excluding the example, how many times does the most frequently appearing emoji appear within the 20 by 40 set of emojis? Exclude the 20 emojis of interest from the count. Now what that means is if we go to level 4, they want us to take a look at this table here. Let me just zoom out a bit. They don't want us to include the example. They don't want us to include these emojis of interest on the left here. Now, a great way, one of my favorite functions to get a kind of summary of information is what's known as group by. Let me just show you. Let me just delete some of these columns. I did some resizing, and that's going to make it hard to see. So group by is a great function, and I'll show you how it works. So for group by, let me just try to highlight so you can see everything here. I'm going to go ahead, and I want to look at all of these values. Now, group by only works with values within a single column. So I'm going to put all of these into a single column like that. That's going to be my row. So every row is going to be one of these emojis. For my values, I'm going to use the same emoji because what I want to do is I want to count them. Now, earlier we talked about the count function being used to count numbers, but these aren't numbers, these are emojis. So we can use instead an Excel's count a function, which will allow us to basically count anything other than just numbers. So I'm going to use count a, and I'm going to go ahead and go over to the sort order parameter, and the sort order will let me see how I want this table structured. The first column is going to be the symbol. The second column is going to be whatever statistic that we're pulling out, in this case, the count. I want to sort it by the count, which is going to be the second column, so I'll put 2 here. And I want to sort the count largest to smallest. It's going to be in descending order, so I'm going to take that 2 and turn it into a negative. Now let's see how this comes out. Let me go ahead and zoom in there. Interestingly, it did not sort. Yes, it did sort. I was just looking at it wrong. Right, so we have this pumpkin emoji which appeared 96 times. That's the emoji which appeared the most. Let me go ahead and put it in for this bonus, 96 times. Bonus 4, in level 1, excluding the example, how many times does the most frequently appearing letter appear in the answers? So we're going to do something a little bit similar where I am going to go ahead and split these out. Now, earlier we saw a combination of mid and sequence to split out all the emojis. We could do the same thing with all of the letters here. So I'm going to go ahead and do mid for text join. The start number is going to be, I'm going to start at 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 8. So that's going to be a sequence of the length of text join. And then I'm only going to pull out 1 character each time. We're now back to letters, away from emojis, so we don't have to worry about that character length of 2. So now we have text joined all split out here. I'm going to split it out to all of these columns. And now we have all of the letters in its own individual cell. Now I already know that these are the longest one because the earlier bonus told me the longest one is the length of 8. So I'm going to do the group by just as you saw earlier. Group by putting all of these letters into a single column. And what I'm going to do is I am going to count A to count all the letters within that column, sorting in negative order on the second column, so largest to smallest. And I get a value error. And I think what that value error is something to do with the way that these are being combined as columns. So let me try to change this to 3 to take any errors out of this to call, and now it is working just fine. So I see E appears in these answers 12 times. So I'm going to go ahead and put 12 for bonus 4. And finally, bonus 5. In level 5, excluding the example, how many times does an emoji appear directly after a semicolon? So for example, a semicolon followed by the alien emoji. Another important note, each emoji has a length of 2 characters. So what I'm going to do is let me go ahead and go all the way down to level 7, which is, sorry, level 5, is it? Yes, level 5. So let me go ahead and go down to level 5. 4, 5, there we go. I'm getting lost in all of these levels. Right, so here we have all these numbers. I'm going to work in this cell. It's going to look like I'm working on top of it, but don't worry, I'm not. And what I'm going to look for is how many times does a semicolon followed by, for example, this dragon appear. Now, to do that, there's a great combination of length and substitute. I'm going to take the original length of all the characters in this cell, and then take the length after I remove the semicolon and the dragon. So length minus length of substitute from this text, a semicolon and the emoji, and replace it with nothing. Now let me go ahead and fill that in, and we get a 0. Let's see if I fill these down. Do we get zeros for all of these? We do, because I'm not using a semicolon. I'm using a colon. There we go. Now, what you're noticing here is that all of these numbers are evenly divisible by 3. Because when you consider the emoji as a length of 2 and you add the semicolon, that is a length of 3 characters. Every time it's taken out, we're getting a difference of 3 characters. So in order to find the proper answer of how many times this happens, we need to divide these numbers by 3. So here we have 8 times, 6 times, 13 times, and so on. If I sum these numbers together, I get 152 times total. And that is how you solve this month's weekend battle. How did you do? Hope you did well on it. Hope you learned something from this video, and I hope you are improving in your Excel skills. We look forward to seeing you for next month's battle.